Hey there, Alex Kidman here. Today taking a look at the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And look, the simple short version is the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is Apple's best smartwatch. There's really no getting around that or past that. But at the same time, it's a smartwatch that I find just a little bit baffling. And the reason I find it baffling is that by and large, whilst it's better than the Apple Watch Ultra it replaced, the Apple Watch Ultra was already pretty darn good. This is in a lot of ways an incremental update, and certainly if you've got an Ultra, I would say the upgrade path to the Ultra 2 does not make a lot of sense unless you've really trashed that watch. Let's get into it. Let's have a look at where the differences lie, where I think this watch has appeal. And I should preface this by saying I am not in the Apple Watch core demographic of people who go scuba diving or jump off mountains or do any of those kinds of extreme activities. And whilst that is clearly a big part of this watch's appeal, it's not something I've extensively tested. I did try non-extreme scuba diving, which is to say I threw the Apple Watch Ultra into my bird bath, and well, look, it survived. It absolutely should survive that kind of thing, of course. That's really low table stakes kind of stuff. But my point here is I haven't done a whole bunch of extreme stuff. I haven't gone out on multi-day hikes with this thing. And if that's what you're after, I'm sure this is perfectly fine because the Ultra was perfectly fine. And as I say, this is a basic reinterpretation of what the Ultra is. Put the Apple Watch Ultra 2 next to the Apple Watch Ultra and you'll be genuinely hard-pressed to tell the difference between them. Here they are side by side. Which one is which? Well, I'll tell you, it's the one on the left, but the only reason I know that is because I know which band I've put on which watch. They have not changed the physical design, so you still get a titanium casing, you still get the action button on the side, which is super handy. I do love that feature in the Apple Watch Ultra, and I do wish they'd put it into the Series 9. You do only get the one screen size choice at 49mm. There's no small-sized Apple Watch Ultra. The slightly thicker digital crown remains the same. It's sort of all the same, except for the small areas and design terms where it's not. So the big difference in design terms lies in the brightness of the display. The original Apple Watch Ultra had a peak rating of 2000 nits, but for the Apple Watch Ultra 2, it's been boosted up to a maximum of 3000 nits. Look, there are situations, obviously, especially for more rugged use cases, where the extra brightness could come seriously handy. If you're the spelunking type or diving in certain situations, then the ability for the screen to get very bright in flashlight mode, for example, could have some real benefits. Look, for my purposes, as a mostly desk-bound middle-aged guy, I just appreciate that it's brighter and easier to see in direct sunlight. I mean, if I use the flashlight under my desk, yes, it's very bright. One tip here, don't stare straight into it. Your natural inclination is to kind of raise your wrist up and kind of go, oh yeah, how bright is that? You will blind yourself. It is genuinely that kind of dazzling. It's not what the flashlight is there for, of course. Learn from my mistakes, people. You still get the same essential choice of default bands, the Alpine Loop, the Trail Loop, or the Ocean Band, and they're pitched obviously at the active crowd, but it's still got the same connection mechanism as original Apple Watches, so you can mix and match to a reasonable effect, although obviously some bands don't stylistically look quite as good with that titanium casing. I prefer the Trail Band. This is in fact the same Trail Band I've had on an OG Apple Watch for a year now. It does get a little bit grubby over time, but I genuinely think it looks a bit better than the Alpine Loop or the Ocean Band, but obviously that's an aesthetic matter and your taste can vary. One nice note here for the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is that it's made from a claimed 95% recycled titanium, compared to no recycling for the original model. And if you pair that up with an Alpine Loop or the Trail Loop, both of which are carbon neutral, you've got a device that's genuinely much friendlier to the planet. Now, that's not a reason to update from the OG Apple Watch Ultra, though, because the environmentally smart thing to do there would be to use it until it can no longer be used and then upgrade and sensibly recycle it. Underneath the display, like the Apple Watch Series 9, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 runs on Apple's new S9 processor, which they claim is 25% faster at a CPU level and 30% faster at a GPU level. And look, newer processors should be faster, but I do have to say, it's not as though the Apple Watch Ultra felt like a slow watch. To start with, Apple's generally got smartwatch metrics down well. They've generally had nice, responsive watches for the most part. I've really thought, hey, this thing's really sluggish, although I'd be interested in other people's opinions on this. The S9 processor does also enable a few new features which are unique to its hardware. So, like the Series 9, for example, you get precision finding of iPhones as long as you're sporting an iPhone 15, that is. It's not that it can't find older iPhones, but it lacks the ultra-wideband chip on both sides to enable directional location work, rather than just relying on a sound playing when you try to find your missing iPhone. You also get double tap, and this is the new headline feature. At launch, in fact, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 didn't have double tap unless you were running a beta of the software. That's now been rectified because watchOS 10.1 is out, and I've already done a really quick little video that I'll link here looking at double tap. But my basic impression here is, yeah, look, it functions most of the time except when it doesn't function, except when it decides, actually, no, I'm not going to work. And that could be a little bit frustrating, but I guess it's a balancing act. I don't want this thing to fire up all the time and for me to have to think, well, no, hang on, I didn't want to stop that. I didn't want that message to get sent. And you can always disable it if you don't like it or don't want to use it. At the same time, if I'm trying to use it and it's not responding, that's also kind of frustrating. Maybe that'll get fine-tuned over time. So the Watch Ultra 2 has a brighter screen, it's got a faster processor. So what does that do to the battery life? Well, this is interesting because the Apple Watch Ultra 2 claims the exact same battery life as the original Apple Watch, up to 36 hours of normal use. Now, Apple defines normal use as 180 time checks, 180 notifications, 90 minutes of app use, and a 60-minute workout with music playback from Apple Watch via Bluetooth over the course of 36 hours. Actual real-world usage, now that's going to vary, and I have been testing this out, alongside a couple of other smartwatches actually, over the past couple of weeks, and I'd say, look, that 36-hour figure, yeah, it's not awful. I can generally rely on getting about 2 days, and I'm not throwing it into low power mode. I'm not doing other things to extend the battery life or necessarily to particularly drain it fast. These kind of metrics are super personal, though. There's really no adequate way to totally benchmark this, because anything you do is ad hoc usage. Anything that you say, I went on this trail and it lasted this long, only means it lasted this long on that trail. Basically, this does the best battery life of any Apple Watch by a fair margin. Bear in mind that the existing Apple Watch models like the Series 9 only have a claimed battery life of 18 hours. I can generally find I can just about stretch that into the next morning, but not much more than that, whereas this is a 2-day watch, which is much better, much nicer. It's one of the things I really like about the Apple Watch Ultra 2. The Apple Watch Ultra 2 recharges via the standard Apple Watch charger cable. While it's wireless, it's certainly not Qi compatible, and you'll have to provide your power on the other end of that charging cable. I did also test it with the Belkin Boost Charge fast wireless charger for Apple Watch, and that works okay, although the Ultra is bigger than that particular device, so you've got to do some fairly careful placement. It's not quite as easy snap-on as it is with the other Apple Watch models. So should you buy one? Well, look, I stated in my intro that the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is Apple's best smartwatch, and I hold that that is true. However, here in Australia, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 will run you $1,399, and that's not inexpensive. I mean, by way of comparison, if you wanted a Series 9, that starts at $649. Obviously, you can spend more on bands, but that's also true for the Ultra 2. And if you wanted an Apple Watch SE to slap on your wrist, that could be yours for as little as $399. And that does put the Apple Watch Ultra 2 into the luxury band if you're not doing, as I am not, that kind of ultra endurance or scuba diving kind of thing with it. It's a great device. I love what it can do with the action button. I love the battery life. The brighter screen's a definite plus too. But that price point does make it a phone for those with either deep-sea ambitions or deep and spacious wallets. And I'm left thinking that for the rest of us, it'd kind of be great if Apple could do what it's done with the iPhone 15 Plus and develop an Apple Watch Plus, which is to say an Apple Watch in that larger 49mm form factor, maybe without the scuba diving stuff in there, maybe without the extreme endurance stuff in there, but at a slightly cheaper price point. Just something that's got better battery life for everyday Apple Watch users. In the meantime, though, because that doesn't exist, this is the best Apple Watch you can buy if you can afford it. Anyway, that's my take on the Apple Watch Ultra 2. What are your thoughts? Anything you'd like to know? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share the video.